So the life of Sarah was a long life. And as we read last week, giving birth at 90. I think in our day and age, I think they have the oldest woman giving birth is like in her 60s that we know about, which was also having to do with help from a lab, but to give birth at this age, it's a miracle. Not only that, but we also see that in last week's too is that God also restored her youthfulness, her beauty and stuff at that time, because even the king of the Philistines thought she was beautiful and was going to take her as one of his concubines. So these are just all miracles that we read. There was a purpose for this. The other thing is that Haran had children with his wife Milcah, and now he's got a grandchild. Basically, probably, younger than Isaac, maybe a little bit, but around that age. But if he had been born any earlier, then maybe that wouldn't have been. She wouldn't have been for him. You might say. You might think. We don't know, but we definitely know that it was God's plan for the miracle to take place to show that it was in God's hands of who God was going to give to Abraham to take over for him, his promised son Yitzhak. And remember, him and Sarah thought, well, maybe we're going to have a child through my servant. And they tried to do things in the flesh instead of waiting on God. And of course, he did love Ishmael, but he wasn't the one that God was going to send his blessings down through generations. And as we know that anytime man tries to do something on their own instead of waiting for God, it looks good at first, but then we realize that it's been tainted. There's something wrong with it, and it turns out not so good. So we do see that later in life with the descendants of Ishmael and the descendants of Yitzhak. But Yitzhak is born. We read about the Akedah, the binding last week, all the different things there. Now we read about the life of Sarah. Sarah dies. What's interesting is that when Abraham got back, it says he went and lived in Beersheba, which is quite a ways away from Hebron, where Sarah was. And as we read in here, Sarah to Hebron. He had to go to Hebron to mourn his wife and then to buy property there as a burial site. And the reason that he wanted to make sure he bought it is because even though maybe they would have given it to him, if it happened, it wasn't a legal sale or anything, they could just take it away. That's why he wanted to purchase it. That way it was deeded, especially in front of the witnesses, so nobody could refute that that was his property. And so he was able to bury his dead. And he sends his servant to get a wife from his father's house, not the land of Canaan, but from his father's house. And the reason for this is that if he had taken a wife for Isaac, his only son, it could have been construed as an alliance or a treaty or a covenant, so that when Israel did come into the land from Egypt, there would be this thing hanging over them, so they wouldn't be able to conquer the land. That's why Jacob was also sent back to his uncle's place to get a wife. And I know we look at his other sons and stuff, who they married as Joseph. Joseph married an Egyptian, right? So, and we talk about Joseph. Joseph is another picture in line with from Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. Okay. Um, Yehuda was definitely a different person. He didn't. I mean, he did marry a Canaanite. Well, one of the women from the Canaan, and he had children through her. But he also then had descendants through. I can't remember her name now. His son's wife that he given him, Tamar. There we go. Tamar, who was not a Canaanite, and the seed followed through Tamar. You see how that works. It's kind of interesting how God played that out. Even though Judah had married a Canaanite, he ended up getting his daughter-in-law pregnant, not realizing it though, because he had well, she didn't just trick him, but he was wrong that he had not given his son. Yeah, but yep, and so she was, and she had twins too, like which is interesting too, you know, because Jacob was a twin, and then you have Yehuda, and then he has twins with Tamar. And we follow the line of Yeshua, we see that it goes through Tamar, not through his first wife, to Judah and so forth, right? They weren't Canaanites. The reason, like I'm saying, is that if they had done so, it could have been construed as a alliance, a treaty, a covenant, and they wouldn't be able to break that covenant, that line of that.
Well, yeah, we know that, get out of your father's house and your country too. I mean, that's another thing. If you would have gone and made that alliance, and there would have always been paganism over his head too. Spiritual and
Stupid Asian beetle flew into my coffee cup.
it's not the sort of flavoring you want.
No. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah. So now we come to Rebekah, and with Rebekah, which we really have to look at this, because there's two things that are very interesting in here about who she is. Not only is she the granddaughter of Nahor, okay, and Bethuel, and brother to Laban. But it says here, and this is interesting, is in the Hebrew it says that she is a virgin. Now the Hebrew word there used is Betula. It doesn't mean virgin. It means a young woman or a young maiden. Okay? But then it also says in the Hebrew, never having sexual relations with any man. So the thing that we have to look at is that when we see the word virgin in here, if it's Betula, it doesn't mean virgin. It just means a young unmarried woman. Okay? And so we look at that, because why would it say after that that she had never had sexual relations with any man? Since it already says she's a virgin, if that's what it means, right? And what's interesting is that every time you see the word Betula, it's always translated as a young woman or a young unmarried woman. Now what's interesting is that in Isaiah 7, where it talks about the young virgin will give birth, right? That uses that word Betula. And it's the only place that the church translators translated as virgin. In the other places, when they use the word Betula, it was a young woman or a young maiden. That's the only place that they ever translated as a virgin in the English, and no other place where it's used many times. And the word for virgin is actually a different word in the Hebrew. Alma. Alma means virgin. Okay? Literally means virgin, whereas, like I said, Betula is a young woman. And so when we look at this stuff, we have to realize, okay, this is a picture we're trying to see. She is a young woman. Yes, and she's also a virgin. And she is willing to go with this old man that she only met at the gate, getting at the well the day before, exactly. And yet she's willing to go. And the question is, why? What makes her different than these others and willing to go? Is it because of what he said? I think it has a part. I think it partly has to do with what he said, his witness, his testimony, you know. But I also think that God revealed himself to her as well.
7:14.
7:14, right? Yeah. Anyways, so by this we see that there is something interesting about her. Why her? Okay, right? Why her? Why Sarah? Why Rachel and Leah? And then later on, why Mary? There was something that God seen in them, right? And we don't really see. I know the Catholic Church likes to say she was a virgin for the rest of her life and had no more kids. And yet the Bible, the New Testament strictly does say that with Yeshua, about Yeshua, don't we know his father and his brothers and his sisters? You know, doesn't say he married anybody else. And we do know that James's mother was Miriam, also the brother of Yeshua, and so forth. That he had several brothers and sisters. But there was something special about her too, you know. And here's the interesting thing too, is that she was of the family of the Levites. Okay. And the interesting thing about the miracle with Joseph or with Isaac is that the king of the Philistines gave them testimony, money, witness that he never had relations with her, right? Which people, you know, began to say after she became pregnant and stuff. It was rumors, right? Well, there was rumors about Yeshua too, about Miriam that you know that she had relations. I mean, there's several different stories about her having relations with a Roman centurion and different things that have come down the way since that time, right? But I think the unique thing is, and as it talks about in the Midrash and stuff, is that cool is that he caused Isaac to look exactly like his father Abraham, so that there was no question that he was his son. Okay? And I believe the same thing about Yeshua, that God took DNA from Joseph, created the body and everything for Yeshua, and when he was born and when he got older, they couldn't dispute that he was not the son of Joseph. I believe that honestly. It makes so much sense because he would have been ridiculed, especially if he didn't look like his father. They would have called him a mamzer and other bad things, but they didn't. They recognized him as the son of Joseph.
Well, yeah, and that's a lot of the explanations about the Soros and the virgin birth and the fact that he was fatherless, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that, see, his Jewishness does come through his mother, but his tribal affiliation would come through his father only. So if he was born of a virgin, he would have no tribal affiliation because he doesn't have a father. Even if he were to be adopted by Joseph, he still would not be in line for the kingship. But because of his looking like his father Joseph, there's no dispute that he was. I guarantee if you took a DNA sample from Joseph and of Yeshua, it would have been a match. You know? And so his tribal affiliation to the tribe of Judah comes through Joseph. And Joseph was a descendant of David. Nazareth, where he lived, Nazareth was to many descendants of David. Okay? It was several. There was a couple different cities too there in Israel, but in the Galilee, that was one of the main cities that the descendants of David had gone to, had uh, set up. Even Nazareth was a new city. It wasn't an old ancient city. It was a new city built on a kind of like a cliff or on a high place. You know, that's why when when Yeshua went to the synagogue and did what he did and said what they said, they took him out to the cliff, right? Throw him off the cliff. Well, of course, supernaturally he disappeared. They're like, where'd he go? You know, couldn't explain it.
I think people don't realize is that Natzalot, actually it's Rama, Natzalot is oftentimes referred to as the second city of David.
Rama,
Yeah, Rama.
yeah, and of course Bethlehem was the other city. Beit Lechem, house of bread. You know, yeah. But when we look at that too, is that there were a lot of descendants of David, even though the conquering kings of the empires and stuff, their goal was to destroy the line of David. They never did. They couldn't, because there was a promise that God had made to David, that there would always be a priest from the sons of Aaron and a son from the house of David to sit on the throne. They couldn't squelch it. Couldn't get rid of it.
They tried.
Yeah. And so as we look at this, go through here, Rebekah rides back with the servant, which Rebekah is kind of a picture of us today. Our job is to learn about God. What pleases Him? How do I do things for Him? How do I, how do I know Him? What are His different things that we need to know when we are going to get married, right? We need to get to know that person. And sorry, but dating and then having premarital sex is not the way to go. It's not. But yeah, but courting, getting to know each other and each other's likes and dislikes, and having rules to go by in that relationship so that you don't have those issues, right? Because we've got too much of that going on today, which is too bad. But and now because of it, they've made marriage to be of no consequence, not a blessing, it's just, one time, why he ended up getting married, but he was never going to get married, and he said, why do I need a license to say I can have sex with my girlfriend? That's basically what he said. And it's like, has nothing to do with that, but that's what people think. Yeah, or this one to me, how can you be married for so long? And I said, because I love her. But you got to get out there and try them all to find the right one. It's like, no, yeah. Well, yeah, it's society today, right?
I don't understand, and sorry to interrupt, if they want to destroy the population, the people in power, why do they send subliminal messages and brainwash people to drink, to have drugs and have sex and blah 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 all those
Yeah.
things? It doesn't make any sense to me.
To us.
Well,
Yeah.
they just weren't.
Yeah.
They weren't power for power's sake.
Yeah, and it's the same. Yeah, it's the same thing that the adversary wanted, right? When he,
The crowd to applaud them?
Well, the crowd, they want us to be beholden to them.
they want, it's just like, what did he want? He wanted to be like God. What did he want to be? What was the thing he was looking for? Power, authority over other people, everything, right? And that's what we have. Same thing. It's been going on over the centuries, that these type of people are always looking for authority and power over other people.
Take God's place.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and think of it like a dog that catches the bus. They're surprised when the back wheel runs over their head and they get brain damage.
Okay, and
I don't-
beautiful picture. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I know, graphic.
But that's the thing that's been going on, and that's why you know, we're seeing those things today in Europe, Asia, Africa, other places. Why even the ancient leaders that we see that were, especially from other countries, in the story of Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar, his counselors or whatever counseled him to build a statue, have everybody bow to it, a statue of himself, right? Power, authority, and also to get Daniel in trouble that you can only ask the king for something and not your deity, right? You're not your God, right? And that's what we see even today with like the Democrat Party. I'm sorry to say it. I mean, the Republicans aren't much better, but they are better in many ways. But the Democrat Party, the left, especially the very left, the far left, their desire is to give people things so that their desire becomes, and their acknowledgement that the government gives us stuff.
Yeah.
They take care of us. They take care of our health and our food.
They're paying for everything.
Yeah, exactly. Without realizing that they're in the kettle of water boiling, and you don't know it till it's too late. You know, that's what it's all about.
The food is just junk.
Yeah, yeah. Junk. That's why you got European countries and Canada and other countries banning a lot of the ingredients that they put in our food here in America. And they wonder why obesity has become such a problem, cancers have risen, autism, all those different things.
And the trucks.
Yep, the diabetes, yeah.
My teacher said he had a German foreign exchange student say that she gained like 20 pounds since she got to America.
Yeah, don't doubt it.
Well, and even
Probably
things like,
even more.
even things like nitrogen fertilizer, you think about it, there's no nutrients, there's less nutrients in the maize or the corn that they're growing in the US versus Mexico. So you have to eat more and more and more of it.
Well, yeah, that's just it too, yeah. Anyways, so we're on a different thing here, but but the thing is that Rebekah is learning about Isaac so that when she meets him, she knows already likes, dislikes, all these different things, right? What life is going to be like with him and stuff, right? And lo and behold, as they're coming, she sees this guy down there coming walking towards them. And she already has a sneaking suspicion of who it is. And of course, she asks the servant, you know, who is that? And he said, oh, it's my master Isaac. And so what does she do? She gets off the camel and puts a scarf over her face, right? And the master explains to Isaac who she is and what he's done and everything. And then takes her into his mother's. Sarah is that as long as Sarah lived, it's kind of like the rock that followed Israel in the wilderness, okay? She was the light for our people in that sense, for Abraham. And when she died, that light left. And the reason that Isaac took her into his mother's tent is after that the light returned. Rebekah was a rightful heir to that light to be reestablished through Isaac. And she became the light just like Sarah was. And we see, as we go through here now, reading the story of Isaac and Rebekah, we're going to see different things that are taking place. Twins born to her, 2 different nations. And we will see this, it's like a thing that happens over and over. It kind of repeats itself, yes. And all the way up till Yeshua is born. Where does, his lineage comes through Jacob, through Judah, through Tamar, and through the twins. Starts with a Z, I think, right? Is it? Or no, P.
Perez?
Perez, there we go. Perez, not Z. P. I meant. Through there, huh?
Ends with a Z.
Yeah, ends with a Z. Perez, and then we go through and we see Caleb, and who does he marry? Rahab the prostitute, right, or the one that hid the spies, right? And she's a Gentile or a Canaanite. But then we also see Boaz, right? Marries Naomi or Naomi's the mother. Ruth, there we go. Ruth, who was Moabite, right? And which is interesting is that God says about the Moabites that they cannot ever enter into the household of Israel. So how did she? I think it was because God was forbidding the men from there. I don't know, but she does become part of the lineage of David, and David, Yeshua's lineage goes back to David through Solomon.
So if we kind of go back to this story that go with that, if we think about Abraham, if we go back to what is it, Rebekah, when Abraham was told to get out of his father's nation, house and his nation, I think God is forbidding the values and the beliefs and the customs of that nation rather than the people of that nation.
Yeah.
It can be righteous
Yeah,
people
exactly,
every-
because Rahab, what is it she said? She was a God-fearer. Because of their God, and she feared God too, and of course you see what happened. Her husband died, and same with her sister-in-law's. His brother died. Naomi's husband died, and then the sons died. But Ruth made the faith statement of, your God will be I will go with you. Your God will be my God, and your people will be my people. It doesn't have to be fancy words. She accepted the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the one true God, and that's why she was accepted, and that's why Boaz was able to marry her. Now, we know that there was somebody else ahead of him who had a right to her, but they refused it. Said, no, you go ahead. And so he did, and we see that he's in line with the lineage of Yeshua, that Boaz and so forth, right? So these aren't mistakes. These are all things that got put together. Rebekah is the first of that part there. We have Sarah, of course. She's our mother, right? And Rebekah is our mother too, but she's the second line to that. That's why we also need to understand her blessing. See, Sarah had a blessing God gave her. Rebekah has a blessing, and so does Rachel and Leah when we get to them. And in here, they say, let's see, where is it here? They said, our sister, may you be the mother of millions, and may your descendants possess the cities of those who hate them. So when we Friday night, later on we have blessings for Ephraim and Manasseh, right? For the boys, it's the two, right? But for the girls, we have 4 blessings: Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, right?
That makes sense for mothers in Judea.
Right. But it's interesting that the boys get 2 blessings, but the girls get 4, right? Well, because I believe women create.
And there's also a significance of the dalet, right, of the door, so that it just tells you that, okay, I put this spiritual burden on you guys, but remember, the way you get to that is through the women that you marry.
Yeah, that's why God doesn't want us marrying unequally yoked, But yeah, the thing is that that's why in Judaism they teach about women don't have to keep as many commandments and prayers, stuff like that, because the reason is because they're already on a higher pedestal, closer to God than men are. Men tend to go off in different directions. Women generally will stick with what works.
And ask for
You know?
directions.
Men don't want to ask for directions. Yes.
It's more like we're distractible, it's like.
And that's why, like in the synagogues and stuff, Orthodox synagogues and stuff, even in the time of Yeshua, the women had a section, women and children had a section, and the men had the primary section. Why? So that they were able to concentrate and not be distracted by what's going on behind them. It wasn't because the women were forbidden from being in there. It was for the men's to be able to concentrate on the prayers, on the study of the Torah and stuff like that without the distractions, because they need it. Men need it. Men die early. Yeah, the Amish still do that. Yeah.
And a lot of Orthodox.
Wanted to point out, we'd seen a cartoon the other day that said, they wandered the desert for 39 and a half years before Sarah asked for directions.
Yes, and like a dutiful wife, she's just sitting back there. Okay, let him make his
Let
own
him do
bed.
his thing, let him do his thing. Never mind, I'm doing it for him.
It's more like eventually he'll tire out, he'll turn to me, frustrated, and then I'll finally have a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
But I mean, it is true, and that's
true.
yeah, and that's why with Rebekah coming, with Rebekah there now, Isaac was distracted, with the loss of his mother and stuff like that. It says he's wandering the fields. It's a sign of distraught, of not having a direction, right? But lo and behold, God sends his other half, his Beshirta, his soulmate.
Yes.
And they become one, and now he has direction again, right? And that's what God wants us to get married to the best of our ability. I mean, some people that doesn't happen for, but a lot of people marry for the wrong reasons, and the best reason is for God, be a godly person that we marry, because if we don't, then we lose step, we lose direction. And God will bring us the spouse we need to help us give us the direction, help with our direction. And I praise God for my wife, because we've gone through a lot of different things, but one of them was when I began to have doubts about God, began walking away. She was my light. That's what I'm talking about, the light. Sarah was Abraham's light. Rebekah was Isaac's light. Show us the right way to go, kind of like the lighthouse. Lighthouse warns you from rocks and stuff, but at least you can see where you are, And that's the important thing of relationships. That's why marriage is so important. It's not just to have sex, okay? That might be part of it, but it's to have a relationship, a committed relationship, and that's for us to also have a committed relationship with God. That's worth working for. It's worth fighting for.
Well, and essentially this is kind of a foreshadow. This relationship, it's supposed to make your house unto God Eden, where it's just you, it's your spouse, and it's God. And then to raise your children up in that.
Yeah.
And that's that it's supposed, the house, the Jewish home is supposed to be a foreshadowing of the world to come.
Yeah. Garden of Eden was a foreshadowing too. It was a foreshadowing of the temple. So, but we can get into other stuff later too. But yeah. So, and I just trying to tell people that marriage is holy, just as God says, it's set apart. And yeah, it's a holy household. The ministry. A lot of people think the ministry starts with other people, but it doesn't. It starts with you and your spouse, and then your children, your family, friends, other people. That's how God wants us to take care of things and to minister. That's why even it talks about we're reading the essential, the book we're going through. Huh?
Elementary basic.
Elementary,
basic.
yeah. Anyways, one of the elementary things is for leaders, deacons, and so forth, to be husband of one wife, and that their children are obedient. Right? That means that you've raised your children in this. Now, a lot of our children can be rebellious. This is the way they are. Even back then, we know that. But, as it says in Proverbs, teach them in the way they shall go, and when they get old, they won't depart from it. And when it talks about if you love your child, don't spare the rod. The rod is a direction of love, right? It's not beating, it's not whipping and all that stuff there. It's a method of love, of discipline, and discipline isn't punishment. Discipline is teaching a lesson. But so many people get discipline and punishment mixed up and put them all in the same thing, and it's wrong. Yep. So as we go this week, as Yeshua said, let our light shine, because we are a light to this world right now. This world that is continuing to get darker and darker, And people are looking for that light. So we need to be a light, right? All right, the priestly blessing. Our God and God of our fathers, bless us with the threefold blessing in the Torah written by the hand of Moses, your servant, and pronounced by Aharon and his sons, the priests, your holy people, as it is said. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May it be your will. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May it be your will. May the Lord turn his face towards you and grant you peace. May it be your will. Yevarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'sem lecha. Shalom. Have a wonderful rest of Sabbath and wonderful week. Wednesday night we have our study of principles. Wonderful book. Kabbalah and Shabbat services. It was something Thanksgiving. Our festivals too. So you all have a great rest Sabbath, a great Thanksgiving coming up. Be safe, and we will see you all next time. So Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat 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 Shalom. Good